Update. Would I be the a-hole if I tell HR about my past with a new coworker? Original post. I, 34 male, am a lead developer on a team of mid-sized SaaS company that has 100 or so employees. Basically, we are large enough that there are employees we can see, recognize, but not necessarily know their names. Recently, we had a new hire, Krista, 33 female, who joined a project managing part of the project I'm working on. I have a history with Krista from college. In college, I was a lot more in my own shell. I didn't really treat myself well and was very much the introverted nerd, down to bad posture and poor fashion sense. Krista, she did have quite a few friends in college, but at least in my view, she wasn't super popular, but she was well-liked and was conventionally attractive. We shared a few classes together, and one day she asked me for some help on an assignment. I helped her on it and we talked, and from the sound of things, she seemed genuinely friendly to me. I helped her on a few more assignments, and finally she asked me if I wanted to meet her after class at a coffee shop and talk. I said sure, and when I got there, Krista was nowhere in sight. I waited about 20 minutes before I called her. She answered and started laughing, and I heard several other voices laughing. Krista saying something like, "Why would I want to date a fat loser like you?" Looked out the front window of the shop and saw one of Krista's friends holding up her camera phone, and it looked like she was recording. Next few weeks, there were jokes about me. Flyers with my face from the coffee shop video plastered up with creep and bold letters on top. I kept my head down, and within a month, the next big thing popped up on campus and I was forgotten. Didn't stop Krista and her friends from going, "Ew, creep," when they saw me. But I guess for the rest of the campus it got old, so I never got accused of anything or even really ostracized by the rest of the student body. After college, I did learn about self-care a bit better. Plus, I usually am with other programmers, so I really don't stand out as a social outcast. When Krista was introduced to our team, I don't think she recognized me. And it's only been a week, but I want to know if bringing up the college incident is even worth it for HR. Most of my rational brain really wants to just let this go, treat Krista as a new person, and get on with me. But I have a small fear that she might tell a skewed version of the college events and sour the team I'm on against me, so I should at least disclose to HR. So in case she does start telling tales, I have recourse. Reddit. Would I be the a-hole if I told HR about my past with Krista? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. You should report it and have it documented so she can't turn anything around on you. I'd also ask if she can be put onto another project. I agree, and I wouldn't give HR too many details unless they ask. I would just let them know that she previously bullied and harassed you. Bruh, she made false allegations around campus about you being a creep because she asked you on a date and stood you up as a prank. She's a scumbag. What if she goes to HR and tells them you were a creep in college, came onto her, and tries to go after your job by getting you fired? Go to HR, report it, get ahead on it. If she says something, a response will always be seen as defensive and potentially lying. What if they have it on the record that she has a history of bullying and labeling people creeps? When she tries it again, they'll have serious trouble believing her and be keeping an eye on it and make someone else her direct supervisor, etc. So you'll be in less situations she could lie about. Say you don't want to be involved in any decisions about wages, firing, hiring, promotions, or being her direct supervisor. I think you should practice what you plan on saying to HR until you almost sound bored, relaying the facts as dispassionately as possible. I recently met a new hire, and I know her from college. She started and spread several rumors about me, then harassed me for X number of years, enlisting the help of a few of her friends. I wanted to request that we not be partnered in any projects going forward. Not that I harbor any resentment, but I want to protect my good name. Someone more eloquent and better versed in businessese language could probably put it together better. But that's the gist of it. Good luck and update us, please. Now for the first update. Yesterday some things happened. Some bad, mostly good. There were mixed responses, most telling me to tell, but one HR professional saying I shouldn't. Due to the mixed messaging, I did consult a local employment lawyer. The lawyer told me that I should make HR aware of the past I have with Krista, but make it clear that there was never anything disciplinary acted upon me in college. He asked if my job had a copy of my transcript, and I verified that it did. Lawyer asked if there were any third parties that would verify the harassment, and see if I could get their names and contact details if needed. I knew two people back in college that I still had on my LinkedIn and was certain they would tell the truth, so we were good there. Lawyer told me to just request a meeting with HR and my supervisor. Say there was a past with Krista. There was never any charges or disciplinary action, and I have two witnesses if they ever need verification. So that was what I did. Friday morning, I came into the office and sent HR and my supervisor an email requesting a formal meeting at 10 a.m. My supervisor came to my desk and asked if everything was okay and wanted to make sure I was happy. I told him everything was fine. I wasn't leaving and it wasn't anything with him or the team. He seemed relieved, and by 10 a.m. we rolled into the conference room with the HR officer. I thanked them both for taking time out of their day to meet me, and then I did as my lawyer instructed. I said that the new project manager, Krista, was someone I went to college with. She participated in harassment of me in college, detailed how I never had any charges or disciplinary action, and that I had two independent witnesses that sought harassment and gave their contact info. My supervisor seemed shocked, and the HR officer went through the info I gave her for a minute, and then the two of them talked for a minute. Finally, Krista was called in. When Krista walked into the conference room and saw me, HR and the team supervisor, she seemed shocked. HR started with something like, "We have been told you two have a past." Krista sat down and looked pretty shocked throughout. She did admit to the bullying, but tried to reframe it as a misunderstanding repeatedly. She never outright said what the bullying was, but then she was told that since this was an incident in both our pasts that nobody wants brought up again, that it should stay dead. HR made it clear that this is not to be a funny water cooler story to share. Krista and I both agreed to that, but Krista still looked shaken. Noon was coming up right when the meeting was wrapping up. My supervisor and HR again reiterated, neither of us is to breathe a word about the college incident. We're professionals, and we're here to do a job. I went to the break room for lunch, and actually I felt like my appetite has finally returned. The last few days were stress-starving me, to be honest. I sat at a table with the rest of the developing team and we started eating. Halfway through my sandwich, another coworker, Sandy 30 female, came by and said, "So I heard an interesting story yesterday about you and Krista," with a big grin on her face. She didn't get further because my supervisor was at our table, stood up, pointed at Sandy and across the room at Krista and said, "You two, conference room, now." I wasn't privy to what happened in the conference room, but I did see the HR officer go into the room 2 minutes later, looking pretty ticked off and with a mustard stain on her shirt. I guess she got the call and was interrupted during lunch. Not sure what went on. The rest of the team asked what that was. I said I have no idea and just kept eating. 5 minutes later, two more coworkers on the other parts of the project were brought into the conference room. Lunch ended and we went back to work, but speculation was high. It wasn't until 3 that the conference room finally emptied. Krista looked like she was crying, and the others that were in the room with her seemed to treat her quite coldly. Not sure what this will mean, but it appears for now Krista is still working here. But I appreciate the lengths HR and my supervisor are taking to ensure this won't blow up further. "You two, conference room, now." I actually smirked like the Grinch when I read that. It is awesome that your HR department acted so quickly. It is obvious that Krista hasn't grown up even a little bit since college. She's still there though, and she'll come back to talk. Bullies thrive in keeping others down. She won't be able to help herself. I'm curious what kind of story she told Sandy, the coworker, that had her running to Opie with a big grin on her face. There was nothing remotely amusing about what happened. Same, dying to know. I'm reassured by the fact the new coworkers were treating Sandy coldly by the end of the meeting with HR. She won't do super well. I bet she may even find a new job. We'll see. Bullies stay bullies. What an abhorrent witch. I want her fired. Nah, make her squirm. Make her so uncomfortable. Make it worse than constantly stepping on Legos. Make it worse than an itch you can't reach. She won't squirm. She'll keep talking crap about Opie until she's gone. I can't imagine why HR didn't let her go. They just told her to not gossip about the incident, and she ran right out and spread a story, or her version of it, to multiple people. What's the point of keeping her around? Second update. Monday wasn't a crap show, so that was good. My supervisor and the HR officer did bring everyone on the team into the big conference room for the HR officer. Said that we are a professional company, and while we do like to have fun, there are company outings like golf, bowling, main event. We are to be strictly professional and not gossip about coworkers' personal lives. Sandy and the two other coworkers who were brought into the conference room Friday looked pretty ashamed during this. Krista was sitting at the other end of the conference room table, and there seemed to be a noticeable distance between her and the other employees. My supervisor said he wants to consider this matter closed, and for us to get back to offering great solutions to our clients. Everyone filed out of the conference room and went back to work. Lunch on Monday was pretty tense, but Tuesday, management had a local Mexican place bring a Taco Tuesday for us, and the mood improved considerably. I don't gossip, but I did hear murmurs that Krista is now on her final warning and put on a performance improvement plan, all within her first 2 weeks. Not sure how true these rumors are, but with how isolated Krista now appears to be to the rest of the team, it is clear that everyone else is not willing to socialize with her beyond their work functions. I consider this matter closed myself, and if Krista worked hard and got her redemption arc, I'd have been fine with it. But then last night happened. Not sure where Krista got my address, but she was outside my house last night, and luckily my doorbell camera caught it, so I can pretty accurately transcribe it. She rang and asked if we could talk. I said through the digital doorbell there was nothing to talk about, and she better leave because this is now harassment. She pleaded for me to come outside and discuss it. I declined and emphasized she's not welcome. She then said she had a crush on me in college, that her friends found out she asked me to coffee and pressured her to turn it into a harassment campaign, and she was afraid of them disowning her for liking a guy like me. Guys, I wanted to laugh so freaking hard. I was socially awkward back in college, but even I knew this was BS. Heck, I wasn't even interested in Krista for a date. I thought she wanted to be my friend. I told her that I didn't care what she has to say. She has to leave. She told me I could just ask Sandy what she told her and it would clear this all up. I declined and said that this matter in the office is closed. Krista finally made an exaggerated sigh and walked off. I took the video recording from the doorbell and sent it to the employment lawyer and will give it to my supervisor in HR today. I will be shocked if she will last longer than this Friday now. Now for the comments before the last update. OP, the matter is resolved. Company, the matter is resolved. Krista, it's resolved, but how can I make this worse for myself? Krista, it's resolved, but I feel like I lost, and I want to win. It wasn't resolved to her because her reputation had taken a hit and people were closely watching her at work. She was ostracized, and management was on the verge of getting rid of her, and she knew it. Of course, to her, owning up and working hard at changing her image would take too long. So why not just try to become chummy with OP, even if it puts back the target on her back? LMAO. Now for the last update. Krista is fired. I didn't even have to send HR the doorbell cam vid, but I did send it to the lawyer I was talking to. Lawyer is drafting a cease and desist and potentially a restraining order if needed. Krista somehow got my address from someone in IT. The IT new hire is suspended because of this data breach, and everyone got a memo about data security yesterday morning, including the usual about phishing scams. Krista's desk was empty when I came in yesterday morning, and since I'm taking the necessary legal steps, I'm considering this matter closed. Last story. Am I the a-hole for loudly confronting my coworker in front of everyone when she wrongfully believed I had groomed my wife? I'm 30 years old and male. My wife, Jessica, is 22. My wife has a 7-year-old son, Max, who she had when she was 15 years old. The father, who was her boyfriend in junior high school and is the same age as her, actually left the state when he and his family learned that she was pregnant. Jessica has no idea where he is, and since her family is well off, she didn't really need her care for support. I met Jessica when she was 20. We dated for a year, and then got married when she was 21. I love Max, and raising him as if he was my own son. Last month, Max came to my workplace with Jessica in the early afternoon to surprise me with a lunch outing. As they waited for me to finish up a meeting, the front desk secretary Claire chatted with Jessica. I wasn't there for the conversation, but Claire was stunned at how young Jessica looked, and Jessica said she was 22. Apparently, Claire did a bit of napkin math and came to the following conclusions. 1. Jessica is 22 and I'm 30. 2. Max is 7. 3. That means Jessica and I had Max when she was 15 and I was 23. Apparently, from that day on, Claire began gossiping about this. I had no idea what was going on, but I did notice that Claire abruptly changed her attitude towards me, glaring when she thought I wasn't looking, or rolling her eyes when I talked to other people. Well, today at work, when I was in the bathroom washing my hands, I overheard Claire gossiping with a new hire about my underage wife outside the door by the water cooler. I left the bathroom and then walked up behind Claire. She turned around and looked like a deer in the headlights at me, and so I announced loudly, "Hi Claire, you see, I am not Max's biological father. In all of your gossiping to other people, you forgot to consider the most obvious possibility, which was that I am his stepfather. I will, by the way, be reporting you to the HR for this." I headed directly to HR and explicitly told them what Claire had said, and the manager, a fellow gossip friend of Claire's, asked if I really wanted to escalate over something so small. I said yes. She then told me Claire is a single mother and relies on his job, and that I shouldn't have embarrassed her in front of the office like that. I insisted on filing a report. After calming down a bit, I feel kind of bad about what I did. Claire cried at her desk and left early. Was I an a-hole to approach the issue that way? Now for the comments. Not a-hole. She basically called you a pedophile. If she cared that much about her job, perhaps she might have gotten all her facts straight before she started gossiping about you. Absolutely escalate this. Yeah, accusing someone of being a pedo isn't a small issue. If she so desperately needs her job, she should have thought before she spoke such a horrible accusation. I say let her butt get fired. And HR for engaging in it. OP could threaten to sue the company if they both aren't fired, although that might have consequences. I work in HR and have for the last 10 years. This was so inappropriate for the HR representative to say. They are to uphold company policies and laws. They are also supposed to be confidential. So not only did they not do their job by supporting and investigating your claim, they also participated and then disclosed personal information about another employee. You need to take it higher up and include the HR representative in your claim. Not a-hole. You can go ahead and add a manager to your HR complaint too. On top of tanking your career, accusations of grooming are life-ending. Gather evidence and present an assertive case to HR. I'm definitely thinking of escalating the HR directly to the company's CEO, whom I'm on great terms with. I didn't expect HR to rush to the defense of the person calling me a freaking pedo. You should definitely escalate this. It's not a small issue when someone implies you groomed and impregnated an underage child. You don't know who else heard this rumor. It could have ruined your life. If the single mom card was going to be played, she should have behaved like a single mom desperate to keep her job. Instead, she behaved like a gossiping Karen. Update. Am I the a-hole for not comforting my brother after his wife cheated on him again? Original post. About 9 years ago, my brother's wife left him for another man. She was cheating on him all that time. My brother was devastated. They had married very young. I was always against it. I had my brother in my apartment for months. He had fallen into a severe depression, and I was the one who paid for his psychologist since he didn't have money. I'd even lost his job because he didn't even wanted to move from the couch or bath. I even gave him a bath. I wasn't bothered by that. I did everything for my brother. She just left and blocked him from everywhere. She simply confessed to him that she had been cheating on him for a year and that she was in love with that man. 4 years after that, when my brother was finally starting to feel better, she reappeared in everyone's life. The typical thing happened. She and her lover were no longer together. She had begun to receive psychological help and changed completely. She felt regretful. She was really sorry, etc. I told my brother all the time to cut off contact with her for the sake of his mental health. He didn't. I always had a bad feeling and I could smell the turd from afar. He started to justify her past actions all the time by saying that she changed. They were too young, she was having problems, etc. And he got angry when I told him that she is still a bitch. Shortly after that, they got back together and my brother cut off all contact with me because I didn't accept their relationship and he didn't want anyone to come between them. I told him to F off and we didn't talk anymore. Now, my brother has reappeared at my house after years without him wanting to talk to me, only to tell me that his wife cheated on him again, but this time they have children. In the past, I would have let him in, hugged him and everything, but he has gone years without even inviting me to meet his children. He has not even spoken to me to congratulate me on my marriage or on my pregnancy. I even invited him to my wedding, and he didn't come. I told him that at this moment I can't let him be in my house, which is actually true because I can't have that kind of stress. He told me that we are siblings and he needs me, but I told him that I needed him too. But he was never there, and he cut me off for that woman. We had an argument, and my husband ended up kicking him out because I was already crying. He is staying with our parents now, and my mother just tells me it's not the time to hold a grudge against him, and he needs me. But I can't forget how he didn't think twice before cutting off all contact with me for her. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not a-hole. Your brother is an idiot, and you know as soon as the ex wants back, he will dump you again. Not a-hole. Your brother's being reckless, and he'll likely drop you the moment his ex comes back. You deserve way better. He is able to completely cut off his supportive sister for years without a problem, but is not able to do the same for his cheating wife. That's messed up. Are those kids even his? Not a-hole OP. It's your turn to cut him off, for your and your family's well-being. If he's been raising the kids as his for a couple of years, in many US states he's considered their father and responsible for child support, no matter who the actual sperm belonged to. Dude is a Class A idiot. Yeah, no. He burned a bridge. This is called the consequences of your actions, and he can figure it out. If he wants to consider reparations at some point in the future, I would seriously consider if it's even worth it. He can stay with your parents if they want to enable him. Let the relatives whom he didn't ghost for years be the ones to look after him this time. The ones who've met his children. The ones whose weddings he actually attended, etc. Yes, exactly this. How could you even ask or wonder if you're the a-hole OP? You definitely aren't, and in fact are a wonderful sibling and human. Be happy with your family, and don't get anyone who wasn't in your shoes back then when you were doing all the heavy lifting guilt you into anything you don't feel comfortable doing. Now for the update. I have spoken to my mother because she kept trying to persuade me to talk to my brother. She came to see me since I cannot move too much. She basically told me that my brother is very sorry, and I told her that then he should tell me that, and not her. My mother replied that my brother is too embarrassed about his actions, but I told her that I am not going to let her be any kind of mediator, and my brother is old enough to speak for himself. I know he was sending her to insist that I talk back to him. My brother is an adult and can speak for himself. That said, 2 days ago my brother came to my house to talk about everything. He told me something that I always knew, which is that he never got over his ex-wife and he was always totally blind for her. He believed that all of us who were against him coming back to her were toxic, and he should cut us out of her life because we were an obstacle that didn't believe people can change. So that's what he did to me, blocked me from his life. He said that he feels ashamed of himself for having been so blind since she cheated on him again. I never told him I told you so, nor am I going to, because he already knows that. There were many people worried about whether their children were his, but I can assure everyone that they are. They look identical to him, and luckily she was maybe faithful at the time. Anyway, after talking, he apologized to me and told me that he needs me. But I told him the same thing as that day. I needed him too, and he was never there. I forgive him for everything, but that doesn't mean that I want to go back to everything being like before, because I don't want to put myself in that situation again. He didn't even tell me what he's going to do with his wife, and I don't want that situation to repeat. I never did anything expecting something in return, but it did hurt me a lot that he turned his back on me without thinking twice. It only came back when things got bad for him. I had invited him to my wedding, maybe foolishly believing that he would come, but he didn't even do that. I even kept a seat for him thinking he was maybe coming late, and I feel really dumb for doing that. I told him I'm sorry, but I want things to continue as before, since I got used to not having him in my life, and I don't trust that he won't use me as a nurse and therapist anymore. At first, he didn't understand it, and said that we are siblings and we should be united, but when I told him that he forgot that for years, he shut up. So that's it. I simply told him that I prefer to continue without contact with him as before, but I have made it clear to my mother that I want to spend these months peacefully. Maybe some will call me cruel and say I should think about my family, but I'm not going to let him treat me like she treated him. You are absolutely not the a-hole. Your brother made his choices and cut you out of his life when you try to warn him. You don't owe him comfort now that his poor decisions have blown up in his face. You're prioritizing your own well-being, and that's perfectly okay. The fact that he's still going on about how siblings need to be united even after OP explained how hurtful everything he did was shows he hasn't learned anything and still puts his own feelings over anything else. He expects OP to reconcile on his timeline because it's what he feels he deserves. If I were OP, I'd tell him he needs to work on empathy / not being so self-absorbed before I let him back into my life. You don't understand. Siblings need to be united when he is desperate and lonely and in crisis. That's what siblings are for, to support him in his time of need. Naturally not the a-hole. Your well-being should never be sidelined for the sake of someone else's mistakes, especially when they've willingly distanced themselves in the past. Reconciliation isn't an obligation. It's a choice, one that requires mutual respect and understanding, which doesn't seem to have been reciprocated by your brother. It's commendable that, despite the pressure, you firmly held onto your principles and protected your space. Wishing you the best with your expecting bundle of joy. And remember, maintaining healthy boundaries is not only a right, but also a testament to your self-respect. Thanks. I'm proud of you even though I don't know you. It requires courage and temperance to make a decision like that. I wish you the best. Next story. Am I the a-hole for sleeping with different women when we were separated with my wife? We were married to each other with my 32 male wife, 32 female for 5 years. However, she told me she fell out of love with me and looking for something different last year. Even though I tried to convince her to stay, she decided to move forward, and we were separated for a little over a year. I couldn't move on first, but accepted that's what she wanted after several months. However, one side of me always hoped for her to come back, which she did 3 weeks ago. She told me she wanted to try things out again, which I was content to. We started seeing a couples counselor the next week with the intent of aligning our feelings and thoughts before moving in together again. One of the questions that was asked was if I've been in another relationship during that time or any other women. Counselor told us honesty is the way to go here, so I came clean. I actually had a go-to club, get drunk, sleep around phase for a few months, and slept with 13 women in total. I knew she was dating around and was honest with going on dates with 3 different men. However, when I told my part, she got extremely frustrated. Now she thinks we cannot get back together, but I told her we were separated and in the divorce process back then. I think it's impossible to get back together now that I talked about my dating life during our separation. But I wonder if I was an a-hole for sleeping around when we were separated. Now for the top comments. Your wife expecting to be able to look for another man and you waiting until she decides she cannot find a better one. You slept with 13 women. I only slept with 1 man. The one I left you for. The other dude was lying about his serious relationship. I'd only wanted to bed her. She messed up. How do you spell placeholder? You weren't the a-hole. Your wife wanted to separate, but she didn't want you to sleep with any other woman. Now that she realizes you didn't spend the time just waiting for her, she probably understands she isn't irreplaceable as she thought. To be honest, I doubt that this relationship can be saved, but it's all due to your wife and not your fault. This was my dad with my mom. Found a new chick. We found out about it, so divorce happens. He moves in with her and ends up in a 3 longish relationships before he finds out my mom is dating. Once that happens, he decides to apologize for his actions and begs her to take him back, all because he thought he was losing his backup hookup. They get married again and the whole cycle is restarted. The OP's wife's relationship didn't go where she wanted it to go. Ran out of people to move off to and thought she had her backup locked up. Now she is worried that you are the one that will have the wandering eye. Next story. Am I the a-hole for hooking up with a married woman and causing her divorce? I, 21 male, have been hooking up with a woman, 32 female, for about 6 months. It started as something casual. We met through a mutual friend at a party, hit it off, and things escalated from there. I knew she was married, but she told me that she was in an unhappy marriage and was planning to leave her husband. She made it sound like the divorce was already a done deal, so I didn't feel too guilty about it. We continued seeing each other, mostly late at night or during the time she said her husband was out of town. I'll admit, it was exciting at first. I was young, she was older, and it felt like something out of a movie. But things started getting serious when she began texting me constantly and wanting to spend more time together. She would vent about how terrible her husband was and how she couldn't wait to be free from him. A few weeks ago, her husband found out about us. He was devastated and immediately filed for divorce. She called me in tears, blaming me for everything. She said that if it weren't for me, her husband wouldn't have left her, and that now she has nowhere to go and nothing to her name. She even suggested that I should take responsibility and help her out since I ruined her life. She has 2 kids, a 10-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter. She claims that her husband is going to fight for full custody and that it's all my fault that her kids might end up living with him instead of her. She says that because of me, her life is falling apart and her children might grow up without their mother around. I feel bad about the situation, but I also think it's unfair for her to put all the blame on me. I never forced her to cheat, and I wasn't the one who filed for divorce. I'm also not in a position to support her financially or emotionally. I'm still trying to figure out my own life. So, am I the a-hole for hooking up with a married woman and causing her divorce, knowing she has kids? Everyone sucks here. You are an a-hole. You knew she was married and you knew it was wrong. She is a much bigger a-hole. She is the one violating her marriage vows. You didn't cause her divorce, she did. Let's be honest, if it hadn't been you, it would have been someone else. You are under no obligation to help her out, but you should reconsider your life choices. Exactly. They're both crappy people. Both terrible people, but let's be real here. The cheater is twice as horrible as the affair partner. Gonna probably take some flack for this, but with the age gap, I'd say the married person is way more than twice as much. 30-something me has tricks 20-year-old me would never see coming. I wouldn't stand a chance if I decided to seduce myself. Lol, this lady has more red flags than Nazi German. I would block her and start looking into restraining orders before she ruins your life too. Her gaslighting attempt is even more horrendous than the entirety of the saga. She deserves nothing from OP. Nothing. To be honest, OP's a turd bag too. Dude knew about her marriage and children and still pursued it. Now he's on here whining because he's catching the blowback. He's young, but you gotta know better than to fool around with relationships. Hopefully he learns from this. He was wrong, but the buck stops with her. Don't burn your own home down and then blame the person who sold you the matches. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my now ex-girlfriend that her manic episode was no excuse for her cheating? I, 25 male, dated my now ex-girlfriend, 25 female, for 2 years. For the most part, things were going great. Although there were issues with her sometimes, usually with fits of anger, it wasn't too bad. Well, all that came crashing down when my girlfriend had what was a manic episode. After drinking copious amounts of alcohol on a night out, she had a severe manic episode where she spent $10,000, cheated on me by sleeping with a random stranger and then sending incomprehensible audio messages to me. She was checked into a mental health facility after that episode and diagnosed with BPD. She had long suspected she maybe had this, but it had never manifested so intensely. The psychiatrist said she had undergone psychosis, severe mania, and had BPD. Since then, she was placed in meds and undergoes talking therapy. Shortly after, she confessed to me she had cheated and was extremely remorseful, saying she'd never do anything like that. I was shocked by her admission and had to hide my tears. I basically stormed out and went to a hotel by myself for a few days. I then plucked up the courage to confront her. She tried telling me she loves me and that she has a lot of regret for what she did, and that she feels immense shame and that it's because of her sickness. I told her that her mental health issues are not an excuse, that it has nothing to do with that, and that she cheated because that's just who she is. I then told her we are done. She began sobbing uncontrollably, saying she wants to end her life. That really hurt me, but I stood firm. I told her that her cheating is her own fault, and it's a reflection of who she is, and that she needs to stop hiding behind her mental issues. Her friends have been messaging me, calling me a-hole and heartless, but I feel they are the ones being heartless. Am I the a-hole? While it's essential to be compassionate towards those with mental health issues, personal boundaries and self-respect are also crucial for your own well-being. It's unfair to demand that someone overlooks infidelity under the guise of it being caused by a manic episode. Mental illness isn't an excuse for hurting others, not the a-hole for breaking up in response to a breach of trust. But some sensitivity could be shown when considering her mental state. Regardless, you're not obligated to stay in a relationship that jeopardizes your peace of mind. Except this time, her illness literally caused her to lose control over her behavior. It's like you blamed someone with pneumonia for coughing. If she had committed a crime during this episode, it would most likely have attenuated circumstances, precisely because she didn't have her full mental capacities at the moment. Opie doesn't have to stay with her after this, obviously. Severe mental health issues aren't easy to handle in a relationship. But that should be the reason for the breakup, not what she did when she literally had no control over things. I live with BPD. Manic phases impact emotional control and inhibitions. They do not impact cognitive function. She knew what she was doing. Saying that people with BPD have no control over their actions hurts people with BPD because it perpetuates the myth that they are unable to control themselves.